Hi guys, US troops live in Afghanistan, and today we're going to talk about why US lost this war and should we expect a new wave of Islamic terrorism across the globe. Afghanistan is a truly unique country. The living conditions there are worse than they used to be 1,000 years ago. There are many countries in the world where living conditions were much better 70 years ago, for example Cuba, but 1,000 years? Something must have really happened there. I've visited Afghanistan in 2010 when I was a student, and it's like using a time travel machine. You know, once I've arrived in a picturesque village and I wanted to go to the restroom and I asked the locals where can I drop the bomb, and all locals pointed to the river, which was quite shocking. They basically had no concept of any kind of toilet. And it's not like people were poor because they were all self-sustained farmers, they just had no concept of toilet, full stop. The literacy rate back then was 30%, so I was not the only guy who cannot read the local language. Now it went up to 43%, but Taliban will probably revert this progress very soon. Of course, the most shocking experience are women. If I was leftist, I would probably argue that because of natural selection and evolution, women evolved to these beautiful blue creatures and it has nothing to do with the peaceful religion. Basically, 99% of the women look like that. And as a guy who visited probably like 20 different Muslim countries, this is not normal. Usually you have some people who are very religious and they wear those niqabs, but these are very tiny minority. The majority of the people wear hijab or some modest European style. Here, for example, are typical women from Iran, and here typical women from Tajikistan. Afghanistan, Iran and Tajikistan have the same official language, which is Persian, and they share lots of common cultural elements. Iran and Tajikistan might not be the best countries in the world, but they are incomparably better than Afghanistan. So what happened? Why Afghanistan is such a shithole? To answer this question, we need to look into the history. Afghanistan back in the old times had two advantages. First, they had a unique mine of the blue gem called lapis lazuli, which was extremely valued during the ancient times, and we have an evidence of the trade from the 2nd millennium BC from Europe to China. Ironically, if you want to buy anything made in Afghanistan right now, the only thing you can find is that amazing stone. The second advantage is that Afghanistan was located on this famous trade Silk Route from China to Europe. Afghanistan was a relatively prosperous place for quite a long time until the 13th century AD when Mongols came and destroyed all the major Afghan cities, which is Herat, Balkh, Ghazni and Bamyan. Basically, they killed 100% of population of these cities. In the rural Afghanistan, Mongols completely destroyed the whole underground irrigation system, which is essential for the local agriculture. You can understand why by looking at that picture. That triggered ecological nightmare and complete civilization collapse, and kind of the population of that area for the next 800 years. And Afghanistan became a place for different robbers who were attacking caravans in Central Asia and neighboring India. When the left condemns colonization, they somehow never mention this Mongolian destruction of Afghanistan, because the only evil man could be a European white guy. And speaking about European colonization, Afghanistan has never been colonized by any Western power. There are two reasons for that. First, the Russian Empire were coming from the north, extending into Central Asia, and the British Empire were coming from the south, from India. And Afghanistan was kind of a convenient buffer zone to split these two empires. The second reason is that Afghanistan is a mountainous and completely undeveloped country and it's super expensive to do any development, and the only thing you can get there in 18th century was lapis lazuli, which was not that popular anymore. In 20th century, Afghanistan became a monarchy and things started to get better. Afghanistan started to be a little bit more modernized, Western style dresses were allowed, and the country became actually part of the US hippie trail from Europe to India. Can you imagine back in 70s, US fresh grads were able to hitchhike through Afghanistan without fear of their lives? Unfortunately, things changed in 1973. There was a coup in Afghanistan, they abolished the monarchy and declared a new republic with the president Mohammad Daoud Khan, who decided that it's wise to keep close tight with Soviet Union and send a bunch of different soldiers to train there, and as a result, lots of communist ideas went back to Afghanistan. In 1978, communists with the support of Soviet Union made another coup, and Afghanistan became another communist republic. Islam was condemned and all the private properties and land were nationalized. And as you can imagine, many people were unhappy and started to form some kind of opposition. So Soviet Union in 1979 decided to bring its troops to protect the newly established Soviet Afghan Republic. The Western world was unhappy as well, but Afghanistan was not as important as Korea or Vietnam, so they decided not to intervene militarily. Instead, they decided to train and create an Islamic guerrilla movement called Mujahideen, which literally means one who's performing jihad. Some of these guys were focused on liberation of Afghanistan from Soviet influence, but some of them wanted to establish an Islamic caliphate and return to the age of the Prophet Muhammad. The leader of Al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden, and the leader of Taliban, Mullah Omar, were among these beautiful fighters, and they were happily trained by Western special forces in the military camps in Pakistan. Basically, the West created a huge terrorist organization just to fight against the Soviet Union influence. Assuming when the fight will be over, they will manage to replace these terrorists with some kind of a moderate guys. The guerrilla fight was relatively successful. Soviet managed to keep control of all the cities, but the rest of the country was lawless. After 10 years of that war, Soviet Union lost 15,000 soldiers, and it was about the time when Soviet Union started to crack by itself. So in 1989, Soviet Union decided to take all the troops back to the country. This made an Afghanistan government in an extremely weak position, and after 3 more years of civil war, Mujahideen movement won in 1992. And then for the next 4 years there was a civil war between several clans of this Mujahideen movements, because terrorists know how to destroy, not how to build. In 1996, the most radical group Taliban, with support of ultra-radical group Al-Qaeda, took the control of the majority of Afghanistan, and the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan was proclaimed. Now, a very important thing. There are 3 major ethnicities in Afghanistan. First, Tajiks. These are Persian-speaking people, they are more civilized, they are generally peaceful, and they live in the mountains. They constitute 27% of the population. The second group is Hazara. These are Asian-looking people who are actually nomads, and they live in the same area where Tajiks, and they speak the same Persian language. There are 8% of them. The last group is Pashtun. These people are living in the south of Afghanistan, which is a completely flat land. These guys have a different language and completely different cultures, and they constitute 42% of the population despite much smaller area. Now, all Talibans are by definition Pashto. All that crazy ideology is coming from one ethnic group which subdues the rest of the peaceful Afghanistan. Talibans are okay with Tajiks under the conditions that they pray 5 times a day and they put their women in the blue spacesuits. However, these amazing people are not so okay with Hazara people. Why? Because Hazara are Shia and the rest of the people are Sunni, and this is not compatible. Taliban declared jihad against Hazara people, and they performed mass extermination in the best style of Nazi Germany. There is a Wikipedia page about that ongoing genocide. Somehow our leftist media doesn't want to mention this. So, after the year 1996, Taliban transformed Afghanistan to a medieval terrorist state, and even Islamic Republic of Iran was not okay with that government. Then in March 2001, Taliban and its leader Mullah Omar decided to destroy an ancient 7th century Buddhas. I remember when I was a child, I was crying in front of the TV when I was seeing that. The story of the destruction is actually very interesting from ideological perspective. Mullah Omar initially issued a decree protecting these statues back in 1999. But then the following happened. This is a direct quote from Mullah Omar. "I did not want to destroy Bamyan Buddha. In fact, some foreigners came to me and said that they would like to conduct some repair work of the Bamyan Buddha, that they had been slightly damaged due to rains. This shocked me. I thought these callous people have to regard for thousands of living human beings, the Afghans, who are dying of hunger, but they are so concerned about non-living objects like the Buddha. This was extremely deplorable. That's why I ordered its destruction. Had they come with humanitarian work, I would have never ordered a Buddha destruction." Don't you think this is so much Black Lives Matter ideology? When they were looting the stores, they were victims. They were allowed to steal because police were killing innocent black people, which was obviously not true. On September 9, 2001, you all know what have happened, and US decided enough is enough. And the war against Taliban and Al-Qaeda was started in November 2001. Now we are finally ready to answer that question, why US lost this war. And the answer is that weak, non-aggressive West cannot win any war in 21st century. What do I mean by that? Think about 18th or 19th century. If you're a weak, shitty country with a crazy dictator, you have two options. The first, you will be invaded and colonized by a much stronger empire. The second, you will modernize yourself, abolish all the barbaric practices, and become one of these equal nations. US could have made Afghanistan its colony like Puerto Rico or American Samoa and brought some civilization there. But the left would object and say Afghanistan should remain independent no matter what, even if it's a completely terrorist barbaric state. We don't care. As soon as US starts to crack down on some radical Islam and bring some terrorists back to Guantanamo and do some interrogation, Amnesty International would declare that this is a violation of human rights and we should stop abusing those peaceful terrorists. The truth is, there is no strong Islam, but there is a weak West. Why Taliban can modernize Afghanistan and create a new China? Well, if it was the 19th century and Afghanistan knew that this is the only way for them to stay independent, they would surely do this. But as I've just said, no matter what, Afghanistan will stay independent. Therefore, a much better alternative to modernization is to create an ideology that we are weak and oppressed, but we are highly moral because we follow the Holy Quran and we will go to the paradise and the evil West will die in sins. The last question, will terrorism spread worldwide again? Will there be another 9/11 or there gonna be some small events like with ISIS? All terrorists in the world, whether it's Palestinian liberation movements or ISIS or Taliban, knows how to fight. They have no idea how to build, so we should have no illusion about any prosperous future of Afghanistan. My guess that they will spread their ideology to the neighboring countries of Tajikistan, Uzbekistan and specifically Iran. And also they will recruit a bunch of followers in the Western world, as ISIS did. And if you remember, ISIS was a tiny thing in a desert. Imagine this now on huge Afghanistan of 38 million of population. Sooner or later, someone must intervene again. And this time, I might speculate that could be Iran and Turkey. These amazing countries are not controlled by the left, so they can do there whatever they want. They can build as many concentration camps in the style of China and Uyghur people, and no one would care. I know it's cruel and hard to accept, but it's probably the only solution which can work in Afghanistan. Let me know what do you think. Thanks for watching. Sorry for not publishing videos for a long time. I will try to publish way more this month and the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe and see you next time. Bye!